Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to 2025. And oh man, what a crazy way for 2025 to start out with. We have our largest leak yet for the Nintendo Switch 2. And I am calling this a leak because everything about it looks super legit. It's about some images. And no, we're not talking about, oh, here's the screen and the Joy-Con and the dock. We've seen a lot of mock-ups for that stuff. And yeah, that might eventually leak as well. In fact, maybe the box will leak. But we got one of the most interesting leaks to date because the entire motherboard with the chipsets included has leaked online. Full images in pretty good resolution. Definitely somebody who took their time to make sure the photos looked good, and we have reason to believe it is legit. We're going to get into that, but man, we actually learned a few very interesting things about Nintendo Switch 2, including some confirmations we desperately needed on the power of the platform. So folks, go ahead, buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride here on January 1st. That being said, we're also on our road to 140,000 subscribers. So if you're enjoying all this coverage, I would appreciate if you would go ahead and subscribe to Nintendo Prime. All right, let's go ahead and see where this all came from, because this is absolutely wild. The Nintendo Switch 2 subreddit. This is the actual source of all of this. We don't know anything else about where these images came from, but this is it, the Switch 2 motherboard. And here we go. You can see right here, this is it being on top of a Nintendo Switch OLED. So we have a size comparison. And yes, everything seems to line up with the prototype that we saw from October of 2023. As you see here, you have the card reader, you have your USB-C, USB-C, some chips and modules. Everything looks cool, but guess what? We have more images than that. Bam! There is the SoC. Now, they blurred out certain identifying information about this NVIDIA SoC, but because we have this, we were actually able to determine the size of the chip. And yes, folks, if you've looked online, a lot of people are saying it's 8 nanometers. That's not actually true. We'll get into that in a little bit. You can see some of the other chipsets hanging around as well. These modules right here, these are your RAM modules, and based on the numbers on it, they appear to be 6 gigabyte modules. So 6 here, for 12 gigabytes, just like we had already seen in the shipping data. Then we get here to the card reader. We can see that there is a likely Switch cartridge inserted in there. It's also a little bit wider than that here, so maybe there's a notch or something on the Switch 2 cartridges, but hey, there's a Switch cartridge in there. We have no idea what game it is. We just know that it's red all the way down here. Maybe it's Mario Odyssey or something. I have no idea. But as we go back, one of the identifying pieces of information that tells us this is real is right here, the BEE CPU 01. And the reason that's a big deal is because that is a code name for the CPU of the system that we have seen in shipping data from Nintendo and Vietnam. So we know that that's an actual code name being used by Nintendo, and now there it is printed on a circuit board. Nothing about these images appear to be made by AI or Photoshop. Everything appears to be real and legit. Even the background of the images appears to be real this time around. It's an actual blue table. So I'm pretty excited about all of this, but what's really exciting is what we learn about this. And man, this is where we have to go over to FAMI boards. And let's get the big thing out of the way right away. How big or small is the actual chipset, the T239 for the Nintendo Switch 2? There's been a lot of debate between 4 nanometers and 8 nanometers, and what is it? And I'm going to explain first why this matters. If it's 8 nanometers, that means it's less power efficient, which means it takes more power to get the same clock speeds of a smaller processing node, which means more heat, which means in order for this to be a portable system, it would be less battery efficient, so you'd have worse battery life, but also they would have to downclock it to keep the heat in control, which means it's a less powerful system. So 8 nanometers is basically bad. Anything better than that, whether it's 4, 5, or 7, is better. 7 nanometers wouldn't be that much better, but 4 or 5 would be ideal. Well, we have some information on this thanks to the fine folks over at FAMI Boards. Look at this post from Zomble. He's one of the people that have been examining the hardware stuff for some time, and he says, we have enough information to rule out the 8 nanometer and establish that it is actually a Samsung 5 nanometer. The Orin 16SM 12 by 878 450 millimeter by 2, 2 billion transistors. This is what a lot of people believe the T239 was originally based on. Then you have the T239 at 12 SMs at 878s. That's the 8 CPUs. And then 200 millimeter by 2, 15 billion transistors, give or take. The CPU alone is 4 billion transistors. So roughly 15 billion transistors on Samsung 8 nanometer would actually require a size of 326 millimeter by 2. The T239, and we have images of it now, is 200 millimeter by 2, which lines up with Samsung 5 nanometer that they began using in December of 2021 to release the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. The T239, we already know, had its first engineering samples in April of 2022. So the timeline matches as well. So the measurements match, the timeline matches. This appears to be 5 nanometers is exactly what we want. 4 nanometers would have been slightly better, but 5 nanometers is perfectly fine for the power level we are wanting this system to be at. Now, we didn't just learn that, hey, this thing's going to be more powerful, because yes, it is. At 5 nanometers, it's got the right power efficiency. It's going to be clocked pretty decently. It sounds like everything I have heard from developers about how powerful it's going to be is probably true. But we also learned this from FWB BWD. So LIC said the most interesting thing about this is that the leak confirms FWB's guess that the USB 2.0 hub is actually inside the console. I wouldn't say it doesn't match my findings. Nintendo is multi-sourcing RAM, yada yada. And he puts out a picture of the chip here. This is the Genesis Logic GL852G, a USB 2 hub IC, since there's no need for such a hub inside the console. I think it's very likely the 2 Joy-Con connectors are modified USB 2 ports. If so, designing and producing new Joy-Con accessories like a guitar controller, Ring-Con 2, should be much easier. So yeah, using the USB 2.0 standard is a very good thing, and definitely something that we want to see. Now, we learned another thing, because again, this has the chipsets on the damn board. If we go over again to another post by FWD BWD, it says, as LIC mentioned, this seems to be the game card ASIC. So this is the chip that handles the reading of the game cards. Switch 1 was B633, GC, BRG, Hack STD. The Switch version 2 was the B1834. The Switch Lite was using the B1921. The Switch OLED was using the B2049. And now the Switch 2 is seemingly using the B2349. Now, you can't tell if that part number indicates speed, pin numbers, or anything else meaningful, because again, we don't know what those part numbers mean. Lastly, I just want to show the picture of the motherboard compared to the October 2023 leak. And yeah, that looks really convincing. It's very similar. Things are located a little bit different, but the October 2023 one was a prototype board. This looks to be final retail. Now, the big thing here is this is all kind of Nintendo's fault, right? Nintendo has been mass manufacturing Nintendo Switch 2, we now know from shipping data, as far back as September of 2024 last year. Feels crazy to say that's last year. And with there being 3 months of mass manufacturing, it's no surprise that finally we're getting leaks from the factory. It was just bound to happen. Nintendo maybe waited too long between the start of mass manufacturing and actually revealing the system to prevent these leaks from mattering. But here we go. We have the leaks and they're out there. And yes, Nintendo Switch 2 is supposedly, what we've been told, slated to be revealed this month. Some rumors have it as early as next week. Some don't have it until the 23rd. Either way, it seems to be getting revealed this month. And it couldn't be coming at a better time, because the factory leaks are probably going to get worse. If we're getting leaks of the actual internal motherboard with all of the chipsets attached, it's only a matter of time before we get the leak of the tablet, the new Joy-Cons, the dock, the box, everything about the system. Maybe even it powered on at some point. So yes, Nintendo, you need to get this thing revealed sooner than later. Maybe you were already planning for next week, so it ends up not mattering that much anyways. Is Nintendo probably mad about these leaks? Yeah, of course they are. But also these leaks are really exciting, because the biggest thing they confirm is one of the things we didn't know about the system. 5 nanometer process for the T239 means we're going to have fairly good clock speeds and great heat dissipation and better battery life. And that, to me, is what I am most excited about. That is what matters to me. And you know what? We're going to deep dive more into this and other Nintendo Switch 2 stuff later, because here's the thing. We have a podcast tonight. But you know what? Let's leave you with one additional little tidbit, because Nintendo did something very interesting. a patent got published. Yes, folks, a patent. This is related to the Switch 2 as well. This over here with the United States patent number 12182-966B2. You see the date of that patent is literally yesterday. This is for upscaling. AI upscaling, baby. As we scroll down here, computer system is provided for converting images through the use of trained neural network. That's AI. A source image is divided into blocks, and context data is added to each pixel block. The context blocks are split into channels, and each channel from the same context block is added to the same activation matrix. The activation matrix is then executed against a trained neural network to produce a changed activation matrix. The changed activation matrix is then used to generate a converted image. So it shows a little bit how this works. You start with a little square, you end up with this bigger square. But as we go down, they show an image example that I find to be really interesting to look at. This is just some generalness on how this works. Again, showing it with the blocks, but the image look is where it's really cool. There's one in particular that I really want to show you guys. It's this one here. So the image began at this size. They use a neural network, and now it's this size, and you can see that it maintains pretty much all of the details at a larger size. So that is really the big get here, as we see some looks at it there as well. This patent is essentially DLSS, but in a slightly different way. Nintendo's going to use a lot of different techniques for upscaling. Whether this technique is actually used in Switch 2 now that it's published, or if this was one they abandoned, we don't know. But look, there's going to be AI upscaling. This is just another patent proving Nintendo's going to use AI upscaling. They technically already use it with FSR 1.0 in a few select games on Nintendo Switch, but that's not a very good upscaler. This looks like a full custom one. Maybe it's based on DL. It looks hardware based, which is why I'm thinking it might be based on DLSS. But either way, it's just exciting to see that Nintendo is also actively and publicly throwing out there that we will be using AI upscalers. So pretty exciting stuff. Shout out to Mike Odyssey, by the way, for discovering that patent late last night. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. I am Nathaniel Rovajance from Nintendo Prime, and oh boy, we're in the exciting part of leak season, baby, right before reveal. They always say the leaks get the craziest right before the damn thing is showing off. Thank you so much for being here, and hopefully I'll catch you tonight on the Nintendo Byte podcast.